Happy weekend. It is October 5th, 2024. It's the morning as I record this, and I'm actually going to start with the end of my last video from the other day. In case you didn't hear it, this is how I concluded that video. It kind of got cut short, so I'll explain that in just a second. Finally, but there is a personal element to this, and I figured it's a good time to bring this up again. For some people who are newer to the channel, or maybe who found me in the last couple of years, I haven't talked about it for a while. So now again, the video got cut off. I didn't have time. I knew I wouldn't have time to get back with more content sooner. And so I just sort of in the comment section put, that I would follow up would follow up with that thought. And I will talk about the personal element and then this tweet and my response to it at the end of this video. That way, those who don't care or don't really want to hear about it don't have to waste any time. If they choose not to or are uninterested, no worries. But let's talk about some of the things I'm watching behind the scenes. This is CYVN, one of the major partnerships that NIO has that I'm very excited about. I think NIO and William Lee, you see him signing there. He can leverage these partnerships beautifully. And so I'm very excited to see how this really allows NIO to get into the Middle Eastern market, especially with the ET9. Also, on a related note, NIO Strats with these posts talking about prospective timelines for things and the expansion into the Middle East, for example. And so I wanted to highlight that as well, something to keep an eye on. I just think it's going to be fun to see what happens in 2025 and beyond for NIO and the sub brands with expansion, with power swap station, infrastructure build out, all that good stuff. There's a lot of really positive stuff going on. Now, how about this? This was my thought, and actually my response was to Brian T with his post here after the vote on tariffs against Chinese EV imports. My thought was this: NIO with battery as a service sort of cancels out the tariffs with Firefly. And I followed up with a little bit more down here. If you didn't see it, the X meant cancel or offset. NIO has flexibility no one else has with battery as a service. And future partners will benefit and strengthen NIO's dominance in this. I believe anyway, this is something we'll see probably from 2025 on, when we start seeing other models with battery swap optionality come into the market in China. And then let's just see what happens. If there is more of a pivot and maybe we see things like the PHEV sales, the plug-in hybrid EV sales in China, maybe go a little bit more in the direction of battery swappable optionality. And then this, of course, a related post with Firefly, some of the testing going on and the reference to this being the most economical brand. I just think that Firefly is going to be an absolute game changer outside of China, especially if tariffs remain a challenge in the shorter term. I think long term that changes regardless. I just think the smart EVs that are going to come from China are too good and too far ahead of everyone else. Eventually, yes, I do think we will see them here in the US. I don't know what the time frame for that is. And maybe we get an indicator of that based on how the US election goes. That would be the shortest term sort of indicator in my mind anyway. Also, this is, and I haven't even worked all the way through this, but I wanted to share it because this is a non-American talking about the capital that could be going back home to China. And there is a lot of it. And one of the reasons I wanted to share this is because I think one of the most common disconnected points that is sort of skewed as negative from a lot of folks here in the US is the idea, I hear it like pretty consistently when folks are talking about China and Chinese consumers, is that they, have savings and reserves of 30 to 50% in China. And it's almost like the inference from folks here in the US is that that's a negative thing, a bad thing. But I'm thinking, isn't that a good thing that they have more money that they can deploy or invest if they choose to do so? So I just thought this was, and he highlights and talks about a couple of really good points that I don't think a lot of folks are yet recognizing. So maybe we do see more money flow into Chinese stocks even into the end of the year. I think his time frame, he's talking about 12 to 18 months, at least, where we see more money flowing into China. And so, what happens? Are we even seeing Wall Street with big money flowing into China yet? Is that going to follow? Is it kind of a combination of those things? Is it going to change short term? I don't know, but these are some of the things that I do with my research. And then here, just briefly, I wanted to kind of remind people, I guess, at the bottom of the screen, I've kept it and will keep it on the ticker because the short term, I still don't think we have clarity with whether or not NIO is in a new uptrend or not. And so I'm going to keep it there. But the things that I'm watching for are like, when I go down a little bit further here, we've got back to back days where there are still millions of shares that couldn't be located. And so there could be naked shorting going on. That's as late as into early September. And so we'll get more data. I'll keep tracking it short term. But in the meantime, the volume is up, the trade volume, which is one of the indicators. This was from Friday. Again, over 90 million shares traded. There were over 6 million shares traded before the market even opened. And then there was a whole lot of selling pressure at the beginning. Again, you see the white lines, which represent fails to deliver. And those are spiking, especially as we go back for the whole history of NIO Stock. I don't know yet. And that's why I'm keeping it on the ticker, because short term, I'm still just kind of tracking things. If we have one of these kind of parabolic crazy moves, I'd like to have some sense of it as it happens. And that's why I'm tracking this stuff. But you'll notice one of the things that did happen is the fails to deliver really fell off during that time frame. This is the 1 million level. There's really only one day in there during these months where it popped up. But of course, we also saw NIO stock go from $3.50 in about 6 months to $55. And so do we see something parabolic like that in the short term? I have no idea, but I almost think we're going to need to see these spikes fall off a little bit, kind of like what we saw way back here, if we're going to see a really, really massive move. I don't know. And look, I'm just kind of speculating and throwing things out that I'm thinking. I'm not trying to call anything really. I'm just tracking it, trying to share some of the research, the data as I see it, and think about it and try and process it myself. And finally, if you stuck around to this point, okay, here we go. As I said at the end of that last video that got cut off, this is a little bit more of a personal note, but it does tie into my view with NIO and NIO Stock and why I chose this company, because of the company being an IDE and what I think I recognized with other companies that have been IDEs, like Amazon, like NVIDIA, like Tesla, like Netflix. Amazon is right there. I already referenced. I'm trying to think. There were a couple of others that I talked about. Apple, that was another one I talked about in previous videos. But the concept in what I think I recognize is there's maybe a bit of a pattern with some of these companies that are IDEs, innovative driven enterprises. They take a long time to show and prove out the business model, but they're very disruptive, they're innovative, they're different, and they have a very large potential global footprint, which is why they have to spend a lot of money investing early on. And that's also why maybe shorts target them. And that could be part of why some of these stocks trade at like penny stock levels early on. And then after they show profitability and have established themselves, they have, because of the big global footprint and the truly disruptive value that, in shift that changes because of the company, that's where you see once the short thesis gets crushed, the stocks can really go. And so anyway, that sort of overview, this is my example, and I referenced it here. David, shout out for this post. He says, I can just imagine the criticism Amazon investors endured after the dot-com bust. Amazon is stupid. Why would I buy books online? I'll just go to the mall. Do you realize how much money Amazon is losing? It will never be profitable. And so again, that would be like the short-term time frame when it maybe was trading at penny stock levels or when it dropped. Meanwhile, Amazon stock drops from $106 to $6. So he's even, and I don't know what the time frame was, but I like that he kind of encapsulates and offers this. And so my response was, I left to the free world, quote unquote free world. And for those who don't know, I was in the federal prison system for over 7 years. So more on that in a second, but I left the free world in 2012. And I remember people talking badly about Amazon. I didn't know enough to have an opinion about it. But when I returned in late 2019, I saw Amazon trucks all over the roads. And I was just kind of like, wow, this is different. So concept is the key. IDE companies can trade as penny stocks early, but see stock prices rocket after strong profits. I believe NIO is an IDE. I also think NIO is a unicorn. I don't think we've ever seen a company like this. And so because of that, and in part because shorts and the short thesis will definitely attack that. It doesn't shock me when we see, negativity in the short term with the stock or the company and people not really recognizing what I think I'm seeing with this company that is a future global juggernaut in NIO. But that's also why I wanted to have a long-term view. I wanted to give this thing time. Obviously, being gone and away from the internet and the free world for over 7 years, I saw major changes when I came back. And so what I felt was, okay, now that I have this experience of seeing how much different things can be based on technology, well, I just want to pick a company that has this IDE potential. And that's why I found NIO. And once I spent hundreds of hours researching it, I was very confident. I am more confident now. Here we are a few years later. And if you're wondering why I was in the federal prison system for all those years, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get a strike on the video, but this is what basically I had I had properties in 6 counties. I was building a real estate business back in that time frame. There were some people who got properties either from me or through my contacts or whatnot, and they were growing some of this and some of those properties, and there was a lot of it. Initially, I was arrested for the first time in my life and was not even charged. They let me go. I think what happened is the people who were doing this stuff told me, he's not involved. Later, they came back, and I was surprised and quite annoyed actually when they came back and then charged me federally. And I was just kind of like, no, this is wrong. I'm going to fight this. And so I did fight. I went to federal trial. And what I learned the hard way is you pay more when you do that. They give you more time for thinking you have the right to go to trial, which I had no idea how some of this stuff operates. The federal criminal system, my eyes were open. And sadly, my loved ones suffered the most because of it through my absence and that sort of thing. So in any event, that's kind of the personal note that I wanted to offer, because I know some of the people who have been early subscribers and followers and supporters know that already. But because, and in case there are new people who didn't know, I wanted to offer it, be a little bit transparent. Anyway, I think that gives me a unique view on things. It also gives me a very, very high risk tolerance. I have had a lot taken away from me. So that's also why the shorts and that sort of thing, I just kind of laugh and play around and joke about it because they don't bother me at all. I believe and trust my research in long term, and things like this concept wise, I think it's key. So anyway, I wanted to offer that, do a little bit of the personal thing. There's more stuff too. If the personal is of interest to you, I'm working on doing some, I've gotten set up to do Amazon KDP self-publishing. And so I'm going to be doing some maybe shorter things. And there will be some personal stuff. There will be some business stuff. I'm going to enjoy it. That's one of the many projects I'm working on. So anyway, that's a teaser for you. But thanks for sticking around to the end. If you, in fact, watched to the end, I sure appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you all again very soon.